drought and famine, natural disasters.
Hey guys, welcome to my first YouTube video. As you could tell by the title, today I'm going to be telling you guys about my labor and delivery. If you guys didn't know, I got pregnant when I was 16 and had my son when I was 17. Let me start off by saying that a little bit different, because usually when you're going into labor, your contractions start very soft and they are very far apart. Mine were very different. So I would get mine like once every 2 hours, and sometimes they'd be strong, sometimes they weren't. But there was this one day where I saw that I had some fluid, and I thought that maybe my water had broke. But at this point I was already past my due date. I was past my due date, I think I was like 41 days pregnant. I went to the doctors and I went early in the morning. And I went in with my mom and they checked and everything was fine. They saw that I was having contractions. But like I told you guys, I always had them, but they would go away. That was the weird thing about me, was that they would go away. So since they saw that I was having contractions and they were coming actually kind of strong, they let me stay and they monitored me for about 2 hours. But after a while, like I said, they stopped. So they sent me home. And that day, I just hung out with my family. We went to Walmart. And I remember when we went to Walmart, they were starting to get stronger. But then again, they weren't starting to get closer. My sisters didn't believe me that I was actually in labor, because they were like, if you were in labor, then they would start getting closer, and they're not. So I was just like, okay, it's fine. I had to start kind of grabbing onto things once I got a contraction and kind of breathing through them. Not a lot, I could actually still walk and everything was fine. They were not bad at all. So I was letting them know, but they were like, no, it's too soon, maybe they'll go away again. So we took 2 hours at Walmart that day. I remember going in the car and they stopped again for an hour maybe. And we went and did some other things. It was already in the evening. We all went to go eat. I remember then they were still pretty strong, and it was getting harder for me to they were getting stronger, so I kind of had to hold on to things more and breathe through them more. We waited there for my mom to get there and stuff, so we were there for a good 3 hours. I was timing them at this point. I had an app and my sisters were helping me time them, and they were not getting longer and they were not getting closer, but they were getting stronger. So they wouldn't really believe me. They were just like, oh, they're gonna go away again, they're probably just the Braxton Hicks contractions. But I did feel them getting stronger. So it got to the point where I started getting into a lot of pain. I remember my contractions getting really strong, that I couldn't even finish eating anymore. It was just a very uncomfortable feeling. It wasn't too much pain, it wasn't unbearable. It was around 8 or 9 o'clock, and I told my mom that I just wanted to go to the hospital because they weren't going. It had never happened to me that I had them the whole day. They would always go away after a few hours. So we ended up going and they monitored me. Mind you, 2 days before this I had an appointment, and they said that I was only 1.5 centimeters, almost 2. That was 2 days prior to this day. And so I didn't think anything of it, but it was very surprising because she told me that I was actually 6 centimeters dilated at this point. So that's kind of a lot. You have to be, I think, 5 centimeters or more in order for you to stay at the hospital. So that's what I did. They made me stay, and right away the doctor's orders were to go and walk around the hospital for an hour and then come right back. I ended up going and walking, and everything was fine. Obviously the contractions were a little stronger. Like I said before, it wasn't unbearable or anything. I don't really remember things, so I'm just gonna say kind of what I remember. So I stayed walking for a really good while because that was what was helping me. I was at 7 centimeters for a really long time, for hours, and I was starting to get really frustrated. My plan was not to have any medication as long as I could take it. I especially did not want the epidural because I was really scared of it, because my sister had really bad experience with it, and I honestly didn't want to get it. So I went the whole thing without any medication. The contractions were obviously getting a lot stronger, but they were still not getting closer, so my contractions were very weird. So things weren't really moving from the 7 centimeter point, and I told the doctor if she could break my water so it could speed things up. I didn't get any further in the dilation, but my contractions just did get a lot stronger. So after that, it was very hard for me. At this point, I was like really struggling with the contractions, but like I said before, my contractions weren't close together, so I had time in between them. My whole labor with the contractions was 24 hours. When I got to 9 centimeters, I couldn't. Like, the pain got unbearable. I believe it's because I got my contractions in my back. If they were in the front like everyone else's, I think that it would have been better, and maybe I would have gone without any medication. They also gave me the gas that you can breathe, and it just made me feel really high. Like, I couldn't even hold my head up, but I still could feel the contractions. Like, it did not help at all with the pain. It did relax me, but it did not help. I'm crying and I can't take it, and the lady tells me to stand up and I can't. My contractions are so bad in my back, so I keep telling. My sister went through the same thing. My sister like rubbed my back. It was the only thing that was helping me feel better, was her rubbing my back where I was getting the contractions, and it was so horrible. I could not stand it. But my mom kept asking me, do you want the epidural? And I didn't want it. Like, I really didn't. But they checked me and I was already at 9 centimeters, and I got to the point where I just couldn't anymore. I was crying, I was screaming. Nothing was helping, nothing at all. The last thing to do was to get the epidural. I got so bad that I was just like, okay, I need the epidural, like, let's just do it. And I remember I was like crying so bad, and I was asking my mom, like, are they coming yet? Because sometimes I think they say that it takes like 40 minutes for them to get it ready. I don't know, but it seemed forever. And I just kept telling them, like, are they coming? Like, I can't stand it anymore. Like, I was crying and I was screaming. I just couldn't do it anymore. So they came in, and I was actually really scared, but at this point I was just like, do it, like, do it. I really need to get rid of this pain. Like, I'm gonna die from this pain. Like, I kept telling my mom, like, I can't. And they ended up putting it. It was kind of scary because while they were putting it on, I was starting to get a contraction, and you cannot move when you get the epidural. I didn't feel anything. I felt, because first they put a numbing shot and then they put the epidural in, and the numbing shot, I felt like a sting kind of, so I did feel that, and then when they put the actual epidural in, I kind of just felt like my bones cracking, if that makes any sense, but I didn't feel any pain. And after that, I was starting to get another contraction. Like, I was telling the lady from the epidural, I was like, can you hurry up? Like, can you hurry up? I don't want another one to come. Put it on, and she was really nice. And after the epidural, since I was in labor for 23 hours, like, with the contractions, I remember I was so tired. So after the epidural, I could finally relax. That numbs you from the waist down. So I could not feel anything. I could not feel the contractions. They let me sleep for an hour while I was on the epidural, and then they woke me up after the hour and they checked me once again, and I was already 10 centimeters. So the lady was like, do you want to do some practice pushes, and we can see if you're not ready, then we can let you rest for like 30 minutes and then try again. So I was like, okay, yeah, we can try. Well, I started pushing, and obviously nothing really happened, but I didn't want to stop because I just wanted to get it over with. So I ended up pushing for a total of 3 hours because he was stuck. They couldn't see his head either, so I kept pushing and I kept pushing, and I was getting really frustrated. And like, at a certain point, I started feeling the contractions, but not like anything like before, but I felt my stomach tighten, if that makes any sense. So I was still numb, but I felt the contractions. So every time I would get one, I would tell the lady, like, I think I'm getting one, and she would tell me if it was okay or not to push. And I remember getting so frustrated because my oldest sister and my mom, they were just not really encouraging. My mom was saying, like, you're not pushing right. Like, you need to push right so you can get this over with. And the doctors were like, you're okay, you're doing everything right. So it was just really frustrating. Every time I would push, my older sister and like my baby's dad and my mom were like, no, she's not gonna be able to do it, she's not gonna be able to do it. And that would just discourage me so bad. At this point, I was so tired. Like, I was tired, I wanted to go to sleep. Mom was like, Celine, you have to stay awake. My second oldest sister, she was actually the one that kind of helped me. One thing I forgot to mention is my whole pregnancy, like every single day, I threw up. Also, like, almost every hour during my labor, I also threw up. I was just giving up. Like, he wasn't coming out. It was 3 hours of pushing, and I just couldn't. I just didn't know what to do anymore because it wouldn't work. Like, nothing would work, and I didn't know what to do. Like, I was pushing so much that my face got swollen. Like, my eyes and everything right here was just so swollen. So the doctor told me pretty much that I had like 10 more minutes left of trying to push. If not, then they were gonna have to vacuum him out. And that actually did scare me a lot because I've heard a lot of bad things about that. And I guess that was kind of like what encouraged me. Also, my sister, my second oldest, she was the one that was saying, don't listen to them. You're going to be able to do it. So after I heard, like, you have like 10 more minutes, they were already going to go get the doctor to let him know that I hadn't had him yet. But in those 10 minutes, I don't know how, but I actually pushed him out. I felt everything, but it didn't hurt. Since he was in there for so long, his heart rate started, I don't know if it started raising or dropping. When he came out, he actually didn't cry, so that worried me. I was still so tired, so I was trying to stay up. I remember the doctors telling me, we're gonna call the NICU just to make sure he's okay, and that scared me because I know that they don't take him from you. They only would take him if he looks wrong or if something is wrong. They put him on my stomach, not on my chest at first. But they were checking him, and then he didn't cry, like I said. He wasn't breathing, and the doctors told the NICU people to like check him out, and then after that he was fine. He cried, and then his heart rate went back to normal. After a few minutes, everything was fine. They didn't even have to take him into the NICU. They sent us to the labor and delivery room, and since I was so tired, my sister actually spent the night with me and my baby's dad. They watched over my son so that I could get rest in the night. But yeah, they actually let me go home the next day. That was pretty much it for this video. If you guys have any other recommendations on any other videos I should do, just let me know.
Through drought and famine, natural disasters,